Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Walk Show podcast. This is your host, Walker Neer. Kind of a strange scenario for this week's episode. The Walk Show has officially been out for a year now. We just crossed the year mark a few days ago. So those of you that have been listening, especially since the beginning, really appreciate it. And as always, I can't thank you enough. And as always, I can't thank Misha Zarins enough for providing the music for the Walk Show and being as involved as he has. And there's just been a lot of people who have been really, really awesome. And I don't want to start naming specific individuals because I know I'll forget someone, and I don't want to get into that mess. But yeah, if you're reaching out to me and you're hitting me up about the show, you know who you are, and it means more to me than I know how to express, honestly. I really, really enjoy doing the podcast, and it's a lot of fun. And the reason I said that today's show is a bit strange is that, as excited as I am that we've had the podcast for a year, and as much as I've loved doing it, just this previous weekend, in January 26th of 2020, Kobe Bryant passed away. And I've talked about my, fandom of Kobe Bryant on this show before, and anyone who knows me knows that I'm the biggest Kobe Bryant fan I know. Now, that being said, there are plenty of other people who are probably bigger Kobe Bryant fans, but that's not the point of this. The point is that it's sad that Kobe's gone, and he was someone who was an inspiration to a lot of people and who was just significant to me personally. I became a Kobe fan, I don't know, probably close to over 10 years ago at this point, and have just enjoyed following him since I kind of started. And the other person who kind of was right there with me that whole time is my best friend, Chris Crabtree. So I asked him to stop by today and record an episode, just kind of sharing our thoughts about what Kobe meant to us and what his passing means. And, it's something I say during our conversation, but I, on the one hand is sad and as affected by it as I am. I feel a sense of, I don't know if responsibility is the right word. That's probably a little too heavy, but I feel like it's important to keep in perspective the relationship that I had with Kobe Bryant, and that's that I was a fan, right? I didn't know him. I'd never met him. I never went to a Kobe Bryant basketball camp or something, and not that would have really made me any closer to him, but the point is just he was always just someone who I saw on TV, right? Or listened to, or maybe read something that he had written, or whatever the case may be. And that doesn't diminish the importance of him to me, but there are people that actually knew him that are really struggling with it, and there's a family that he left behind. And there were other families on board that aircraft that I don't know who they are. I mean, yeah, I've seen their names, but I just mean they're not celebrities, right? So I have no connection to them. And so my point is just, that there's some real tragedy there, and I don't want to try and insert myself into that in that way. So, with that being said, though, I really, like I said, I really enjoyed the conversation I got to have with Chris about it. Kobe was very significant to both of us. Like I said at the beginning, thank you again, Misha Zarins, for providing the music for today's show. And really, this is an example, though, of kind of why I wanted to start the Walk Show, because I wanted to be able to have a voice at a time like this, or be able to have a platform to share, my thoughts and the thoughts of those other people like Chris Crabtree that are important to me on stuff that's important to us. And maybe it resonates with someone else out there, but either way, again, thank you so much for tuning in, and without further ado, let's get on with the episode. All right, Chris Crabtree, welcome to the Walk Show. Thank you so much for stopping by.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, for sure, man. So yeah, I I asked you to come on, obviously, as I said in the intro about, the passing of Kobe Bryant on Sunday, the 26th.
Yeah, it's very tragic and sad. I actually didn't know what to say when you texted me. I thought it was a joke. I mean, it just seemed so
Right.
crazy.
Yeah, I'm sitting there. So I'm playing backgammon. I don't know if you've ever played backgammon, but it's
Yeah.
an old game. But I'm sitting there playing backgammon with my mom, and I get a text message from my sister, and she says, and it just says, bro, dash, Kobe, OMG, and then like shocked face
Oh.
or whatever, like
Uh,
emoji,
yeah.
you know? And I just said, LOL, what about him?
He's coming back out of retirement.
Yeah. Well, I didn't think it was that, but I just figured, I don't know, there was just some media antic that had happened, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
Or, I mean, maybe he offended someone. I don't, it's that era, right? I don't know.
No. Yeah.
And then she just texted, he died this morning in a helicopter crash.
Yeah.
And I just immediately Googled it, of course,
Yeah.
and saw the headline right away. And then my phone just blew up. I just got. I mean, I don't know how many. I mean, it's not like I got 100 texts. I'm not that popular, but but I got 10. I don't know, a lot of texts,
Yeah.
just all back to back from people because everyone knows I'm a huge Kobe fan, right?
Right.
And yeah, and I was just kind of stunned.
Yeah, I did the same thing. I immediately started looking, for the news articles, and I didn't know at first that his daughter was
Didn't either.
in the helicopter as well.
Yeah, 13.
Hmm.
Well, and that's what's. I mean, Kobe's. He's been relevant since 1996 when he was drafted in the NBA, I think, in the national spotlight, at least among sports fans, for sure, but and NBA fans more specifically. But he retired in 2016, but he stayed relevant even after his retirement. I mean, he won an Oscar
Yeah.
like two
Yeah.
years later, and then in this last year, and especially these last like 3-4 months, like this NBA season, there's been different videos and pictures of him at NBA games with his 13-year-old daughter Gianna.
Yeah, I guess he became more involved in like her basketball career.
Yeah,
I think he was helping coaching her team or something
Yeah.
like that.
he was.
But I couldn't find very much about the actual helicopter crash. I mean, maybe more will come out.
Yeah,
But I heard that it was really foggy
right.
when they were flying, and potentially like going around the fog or something like that, and then ended up just hitting like a mountain or something.
A hill or something.
Yeah, a large landmass. I don't know.
Yeah, I know that. So I watched the. I don't remember what the title was. The sheriff from LA County spoke at one or whatever. I don't even know if it was LA County, whatever. The sheriff and some other, law enforcement type official or whatever gave a press conference in which but it was they weren't announcing that it was Kobe, so they were giving this announcement prior to it being confirmed that it was Kobe and the people he
okay.
was traveling with.
Yeah.
So they were talking about it just very objectively. There was an accident. There are no survivors. We're not sure what happened. There was a lot of fog. It was so foggy that I guess the LAPD had grounded all of their helicopters
Oh.
for that time.
Okay.
But as of now, I don't know that we can conclusively say that it's because of the fog. I mean, it could have very well been,
Right.
but there could have been some other. I mean, they just haven't finished investigating the helicopter.
Yeah, there could have been some sort of malfunction. Who knows?
Right.
I mean, I would like to think that that he had a good pilot. So
I'm sure.
you know.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so he flew his helicopter. I mean, when I say that, he didn't. I don't believe he piloted a helicopter ever. I don't know, but I don't think he drove himself in the helicopter like it was his car. But like he didn't drive to the Staples Center when he played.
Yeah, this
He took a
helicopter
helicopter.
thing was. I mean, he's been doing it for a
Ever.
long time. Yeah.
Right. Because he lives like 2 hours away from the Staples Center.
Mm-hmm.
Well, at least by traffic. I don't know that it's 2 hours if you were to have normal traffic. But in LA traffic, it would be a long drive commute to get there to the
Right.
games and stuff. So yeah, he just flew. And yeah, same thing. They were headed out to a basketball game, I guess.
Yeah.
And it was him and his daughter, and then another husband and wife and their daughter that I think maybe was another coach or something.
Yeah, I think it was
Man.
someone that was on Gina's team, maybe.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can't even imagine. It's like something so routine as far as going to a game or, a friend of the daughter. It's like, hey, I want to ride in the helicopter, and
Right.
I mean, it's something so innocent like that, and it turned so bad.
Yeah, well, and I mean, obviously my sister came on the walk show a couple months ago, and we did a whole episode about, the passing of my dad back in 2004, and how much that shook me. And anyone that knows me knows that's, something I refer to quite a bit as a really significant moment in my life, as it obviously would be for anyone. And so it's not like I don't personally understand the the fragility of life, right? That it can just be gone. And to be clear, as sad as I am that Kobe's gone, I mean, obviously in no way compares. I didn't know him, right? So it's not personal in that way. So it doesn't compare to the loss of my dad in any way. But it's still something that, like, and there's a lot to unpack, I'm sure, with our celebrity culture in America and all that stuff. But like, I don't know. I just never thought Kobe would die.
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, as crazy and stupid as that sounds to say out loud, like, and he's only 5 years older than we are.
right.
Like he's not 70, 80, 90, he's 41.
And it feels so strange because I know for me personally, I've always held Kobe as this higher standard of like work ethic and, someone that could conquer anything that he decided that he wanted to be successful at.
Yeah.
And I don't know, it just kind of brings everything into perspective in that way, because it's like no matter how much you're going to strive to, be the best person you can be, like there's still things that we can't control in that way.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably unlikely that any of us, at least the vast majority, get in a helicopter accident because we're not in one.
Yeah.
But a car accidents happen every day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, but it's something that you don't think about, when you just commuting. It's just such a routine thing that, and then if you were constantly thinking about, oh, I might wreck or something like that, then arguably it might make harder to drive around. But
yeah, I mean, to some, I mean, that's, I don't know. It's kind of like that's kind of like the risk of the vulnerability of being alive, right? Is the capacity to, despite, like, there's kind of two things, right, that we hold all the time, and one of them is like live every day like it's your last, right? But not really, because everyone wants to probably make sure they can eat tomorrow,
right?
And next week, and you want to pay your light bill and your house payment in a few weeks or next month, right? So,
you're constantly making these long-term plans or adjustments, based on I'm going to wake up tomorrow,
right?
Yeah,
but I think that Dylan Barr is a guy who's been on the show a couple of times, and he shared a quote that's, I believe, from the Dalai Lama that was, man will sacrifice his health to gain wealth, and then later in life sacrifices wealth to try and save his health, and live as if he's never going to die, and then die without ever really having lived. And I think what that's speaking to some extent is this idea of like it is important to hold them in balance. I mean, that's something that Dylan Barr shared with me, and not that he, I mean, yin yang's been around for a long time, so not that Dylan Barr came up with the idea of balance, but he really emphasized it in our conversation, and since then it's really stuck with me. And it's yet another example, I think, where the answer is actually just both. It's that you do have to live for the future, because otherwise tomorrow's going to suck if you're wrong and you make it to tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
But you also do kind of have to appreciate that there is an end. And it might not be today.
Yeah.
Could be.
Right.
But there is an end.
Yeah.
It's not forever.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I don't know how to, I'm kind of confused, to be honest, on kind of how to react to this, because, you know, anyone that's listened to the show and anyone that's heard you on the show before, I mean, we've talked about a video game and then we talked about Tool, right?
Right.
And Tool is like our, like we hold it in the highest regard of all music, and maybe even all art, you know?
Right.
And Kobe isn't a musician or an artist in that way, but like Kobe is like Tool.
Yeah.
To me and to you, I think, right?
Right. Right. I don't know what you would think of as, the highest level of craft.
Yeah.
I mean, his was basketball, but he approached it in a way that was, not just physical, mentally, and always trying to pay attention to the strategy of it all, and always trying to, get better, I guess, and learn from other people that came before him that were also great. But also trying to play his own way and make it his own style. Like, I mean, adapting to, what he learned, to that way he could do what he did on the court, I guess.
Yeah, well, I think in the case of Tool and Kobe both, like, it's a thing where, like, it's not fair to say that Tool doesn't make music for other people to listen to, because they certainly do, right? They didn't just make it for themselves to listen to.
Yeah.
Because they sell it and go on tour, and, you know what I mean? Like, it's for others. But I don't feel like when they make it, that they make it with others in mind.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Like, they make what they think they want to make.
Yeah.
And I think that, again, it's hard to compare music and basketball directly, but I think that's how Kobe approached basketball. Was like, I mean, yeah, he has to be on a team and whatever, but, like, in the end, like, which is kind of what you were just saying, like, it's like he's doing it his own way, and he's doing it, like, it's not that he won't listen to advice, and if he thinks, I mean, like, he famously reached out to Hakeem Olajuwon, who's a center from the 90s, and Kobe's a guard from the 90s, you know what I mean? Like,
right.
Totally different position, but Hakeem Olajuwon's, like, the master of post moves, so he wants to learn that.
Yeah.
He talked about, I don't remember what year it was now, probably 2009 or 2010, but talked about, he talked about stealing some move from Tim Duncan in an interview. He called it swagger jacking. He said he swagger jacked Tim Duncan's move, you know, like. But so it's not that he thought that he was exclusively the owner of all good things and that no one else had anything to offer. Like, it's not about an arrogance like that. It's more just about, like, just an unwavering confidence and belief in himself that he can do it.
And also, like a humility to understand what you're weak in.
Yeah.
Understanding that, well, I'm going to have to maybe transition into more post-play, so let's find out how to do that the best I can do.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. So just last week, I talked briefly about this baseball card shop that I used to go to with my dad here on the Walk Show. I talked about it, and I talked about how that was kind of what spurned my Allen Iverson fandom.
Oh, right.
And I talked about how it was interesting because Iverson was like my first, NBA player that I fell in love with, if you will. Mm-hmm. And how it was kind of different than Kobe, which was the second, right?
Right.
Because with Kobe, it was more like, it almost started like intellectually.
Mm-hmm.
Like eventually it was emotional. There was
Yeah.
an emotional connection as well.
Yeah.
But initially it was more kind of an intellectual thing where I was intrigued. Whereas with Iverson, I was a kid. My dad's buddy told me about him. I
Mm-hmm.
had access to his cards. I could watch him.
Yeah.
And I thought he was super cool.
Right.
And it was kind of fun to be an Allen Iverson fan because not everyone was an Allen Iverson fan. Like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like being a Michael Jordan fan. Like, everyone was a Michael Jordan fan when we were kids, you know?
Right.
And not that I didn't like Michael Jordan, but just like, I don't know, it wasn't cool to be a Michael Jordan fan, but I thought it was cool to be an Allen Iverson fan because not that many people knew about him when he was a rookie or whatever. I mean, again, not that I'm like the Allen Iverson discoverer or something, but just
Yeah.
I mean, he was the number one pick in the draft. Again, I get it. It's a common theme here where I tell everyone about stuff that's super popular for a long time, Like I did an episode, I don't know how long ago now, but several where I was like, I don't know if anyone here's seen Black Mirror. It's been out since like 2011 or something, but
Yeah.
but I just watched it, so but anyway, like, and so it was interesting because just last week I was comparing Iverson and Kobe, and I was kind of nostalgic about Iverson because of the connection to my dad and my childhood and collecting the cards and all that stuff. But the truth is that, like, and I have the autographed picture of Iverson on the wall, right? And like, and Iverson will always hold a special place in my heart as far as a fan, but my fandom of Iverson kind of really only extended to the basketball court. Like, I was just a fan of Iverson on the court.
Right.
Iverson off the court is kind of hard to be a fan of, honestly, because he's, especially then. I mean,
Yeah.
now it's different.
Yeah.
But when he was young, like, he made a lot of really just seemingly selfish decisions.
Yeah.
Kobe was called selfish because he shot too much. Iverson literally wouldn't practice. Whereas Kobe famously worked harder in practice than he even did in games.
Yeah.
Right.
Practicing before games.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
Well, and like the intensity with which he played in practice, they say was like, again, game level or more.
Yeah.
And Jordan was the same way.
Right.
But with Kobe, like, and and that's why it ties back to Tool again, is that, like, with Kobe, I don't know that I was actually I think I actually was a bigger fan of Kobe's personality, for lack of, or character,
Yeah.
than I even was of his basketball. Like what he did on the court was just like a manifestation or an expression of the character that he portrayed himself to be off the court.
Mm-hmm.
At least publicly. Again, I don't know the guy. I don't know how he is with his family and stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
So I don't, and I say that over and over just because that's, like I said earlier, I'm confused on how to feel, because it's sad, because this guy is like an icon to me. Like the only equivalent death I can imagine is if I would have texted you and said Maynard just died in a helicopter accident,
Right.
or Danny Carey even, or something, someone from Tool.
Yeah.
But that's about it from a celebrity standpoint that I can think of. Where maybe Chappelle
Yeah. Chappelle.
Chappelle would be there.
Yeah.
Chappelle, Kobe, Tool. I don't, maybe for me personally, which I know this wouldn't be for you, but like maybe for me, like a Malcolm Gladwell,
Yeah.
maybe, but that's a lot more recent.
Mm-hmm.
Gladwell's a lot more recent for me than these others,
Yeah, these others have been, long time fans of, and I don't know, it just feels so strange.
Yeah. Well, and so like with Iverson, the thing that's interesting about Iverson, so Iverson and Kobe are the same draft class. Iverson's number 1 pick, Kobe's 13th.
Right.
96. So they came into the league at the same time, and they were compared often. And the thing about Iverson that everyone loves as him as a player is that he killed himself to play. Like, he was the hardest playing dude every night, and
Yeah.
he was probably the smallest dude every night.
Yeah.
And when Kobe was in the league, I mean, for the first 10 years that Kobe was in the league, I was not a Kobe Bryant fan.
I wasn't either. It was something that was later developed, and also there was a stretch there where I wasn't even paying attention to basketball very much.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably part of it is because Kobe is what brought me back.
Same. Right. Both of us together.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Especially that run where they win the championship against the Celtics.
Yeah. It started. Well, so we started watching him again at the end of '07
Mm-hmm.
because it's towards the end of '07 that they get Pau Gasol,
Yeah.
the '07 season.
Yeah.
And then the following year, he wins MVP.
Mm-hmm.
They go to the finals and lose to Boston.
Right.
Then the next year, they go to the finals, beat Orlando, then go again and beat Boston in 10.
Yeah. So it's like that redemption run
Mm-hmm.
really solidified it. It was like, I mean, I was all on board, paying attention again, but then to be able to see him overcome that challenge,
Yeah.
especially against Boston again in the finals,
Right.
and come out the victor, it was pretty magical.
It was. Well, so and so the reason I bring up Iverson and like how his work ethic was the reason that he was popular. Well, the reason that I didn't like Kobe when he was younger, and I obviously was too, but for that first 10 years or so, was my impression of him was that he was like some arrogant, more flash than substance
Yeah.
kind of guy, like I knew he won with the Lakers. Now I was also a huge Iverson fan when Iverson went to the finals against Kobe
Yeah.
and got destroyed by the Lakers, right? So there's also some part of me that I can't be a Lakers fan because I'm a Sixers fan and they got beat and that's
Yeah,
why
they got the first game.
They did get one.
Yeah.
But they didn't get four. And they got beat the next four in a row, actually.
Yeah.
So but anyway, so like I thought that Kobe was this like, I mean, for lack of a better term, like kind of a punk, I guess. I thought he was in the same, I thought he ultimately was going to be the same type of player that we now can look back and see that like Stephon Marbury was, or that Steve Francis was.
Yeah.
Where there's a lot of talent, but
and they might have some solid years,
right.
And even in Kobe's situation, I mean, he won championships with Shaq and everything, but what really separates him, I think, is really when he starts transitioning, and I don't know like how I would describe it, but becoming more of a leader.
Yes.
And kind of understanding team dynamics and interacting with people, and just becoming more conscious of that thing. I don't know, the way it shaped him coming out, through that process.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's talked about it some, and Phil Jackson's talked about it, but they talked about how when Shaq was there, Kobe could just focus on himself because Shaq was the leader glue guy, the guy who made people feel important and made people feel part of the team, and like almost like he's the officer and Kobe's just like the hotshot pilot or something, like, but he's not the colonel or whatever. That's Shaq. Well, then I guess we should say general because of Shaq's cheesy insurance commercials. Anyway,
yeah.
So then Shaq leaves, and I think for those first 3 years, 05, 06, and then through 7, I think Kobe thought he was going to lead by example purely.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then that didn't work.
Right.
I mean, they didn't make the playoffs one year.
Yeah. And it takes like, I don't know, it says something about teams, and it's like you kind of just need that person that's more outgoing, that's just like not afraid to be vocal and able to build chemistry, not just you should do this and do this on the basketball court, but also be able to connect, personally. And I don't know Shaq personally, but he seems very outgoing and willing to have fun and joke around, and the effect that has on other people, by bringing them together and making them feel part of something.
Right.
And I think yeah, early on, Kobe didn't understand that, maybe.
Yeah, well, I think he didn't have to when Shaq was there.
Yeah.
And then once Shaq leaves, yeah, I think he doesn't understand that. But he talked about that and talked about how he had to kind of learn that, like, oh, I've got to step into that role. Now
Mm-hmm.
he's not going to do it the way Shaq did it
Right.
because he's not that personality, but he's going to make a sarcastic comment and then, laugh a little bit. Like there's a famous clip where he's in practice with Sasha Vujacic. I don't know
Yeah.
exactly how you say it. And he says, "Don't touch me the rest of the practice." And then Sasha immediately touches him.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, "I said don't touch me," and elbows him super hard. And from his face and his tone, it seems like Kobe's like really bullying this dude.
Yeah.
For basically. But Sasha is standing behind him, and Kobe's looking at some other coach, and the camera is facing Kobe, of course. So Sasha can't see Kobe's face, and he winks at whatever coach is looking at them.
Yeah.
So it's like he's not actually trying to mess with him.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
he's teasing him.
Right.
Right.
Right. And that would be like, yeah, Kobe's way of teasing, but hey, still mean business.
Right. Exactly. Well, so the long-winded point that I've been trying to get to is that I think actually, so what we eventually got really attracted to in Kobe is what we've been talking about. It was his determination, his commitment, his consistency, his work effort, all these things.
Yeah.
And the thing that I then realized after I became a fan of Kobe's was that I was wrong about who he was in the beginning. Like he never was more style than substance. He never was a Steve Francis or a Stephon Marbury. Like he was always that guy.
Yeah.
He just didn't have that. He didn't have the rags to riches story, right? He came in, I mean, he took Brandy to his prom
Yeah.
when he was a senior in high school, right? Like
Right.
Allen Iverson wasn't doing that. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like he just had a different story, so it looked different, but he was that dude the whole time.
For sure.
And yeah, I just feel I feel like Kobe. I'm so glad that I became a Kobe fan because I mean, and I don't know if I'll ever get to have those moments again with any other athlete because as I get older, I think I find it harder and harder to believe in them in the same way.
Mm.
And I think part of it's age.
Yeah.
Like when we became Kobe fans, we were like early 20s
Right.
and he was like just about to turn 30.
Yeah.
So he's a few years older than us, but he's still older than us.
Right.
But like when I'm 50 and am I going to be able to look at a 23 or 25-year-old person and be like, "Man, really really believe in," like
Yeah.
I feel like
know.
I'll still look at it like Dame Lillard, for example, I like a lot. Now Dame isn't Kobe, but like would I ever be able to get into the mental space with Dame Lillard that I did with Kobe? Like I don't know.
I don't know.
Because I don't know that I could look up to him in the way that I did Kobe.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Or I mean,
No offense, people younger than me.
yeah, or like Giannis.
Yeah.
And it, I don't know, maybe that's unfair because Kobe also had to grow. I mean,
He did.
It required a lot of experience in the NBA and probably a lot of life experience also. And I mean, he wasn't in the beginning, he definitely wasn't where he is, as he progressed through his career toward the end.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to, I don't know, say what a player's trajectory would be,
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing, too, is that it's like, Kobe made such, like, he really drew some lines in the sand with the way he portrayed himself off the court.
Mm.
And then was fortunate enough to be able to just completely back it up on the court. So it was just so satisfying, to watch, like when they won those championships, man, like it was so much fun.
Mm-hmm.
It was so much fun to be a fan of that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, but then beyond that, like, I mean, I've gobbled up every piece of Kobe media that I could find prior to now.
Mm-hmm.
I certainly have since yesterday as well, since he passed, but like I couldn't wait for the next 20 years of Kobe Bryant interviews because who knows what we were going to get,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And I couldn't wait to hear him slowly unpack all these basketball stories that he'd never had told, right, while he was a player. And yeah, I don't know. I was just I couldn't wait.
Mm-hmm.
And now,
or even just hearing him talk from the perspective of his new endeavors.
that's what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doing the company thing and the
Right.
writing thing and the stories
Yeah.
and just hearing like how passionately he felt about that. And it's just interesting to hear people with amazing characters talk about whatever they're interested in.
Yeah.
So
he was going to be inducted in the Hall of Fame this year. Like, I was actually looking forward to watching his Hall of Fame speech.
Yep.
And we won't. I wonder what's going to happen with that. He'll be inducted.
Oh, of course.
Like, I wonder if, like, Phil Jackson will accept it on his behalf.
Yeah.
Or Fisher, like D-Fish.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was, like, his closest boy for a long time in the league.
Yeah. D-Fish. I mean, Shaq's a possibility, but I would think...
Shaq's a possibility, but that almost seems a little like... I don't know.
Based on the
like,
narrative.
I don't feel like he's the first person Kobe would have called to say, hey, I can't make it. Can you accept it on my behalf? I don't think that's Shaq.
True.
Like, I feel like it's Phil or Derek Fisher first.
Yeah.
Or maybe Rob Pelinka, his agent, who's now the GM of the Lakers.
It's possible, but I think Phil or Derek, because just people I don't know if would be as familiar with Rob.
Right.
And
right.
I don't know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would go with Phil or Derek.
Yeah. I don't know. He was just an incredible character. And it's funny because, like, I always pick, when people ask me, like, what characters or what people I find as, like, my heroes, like, I mean, I have heroes in my own personal life. Like, my mom is probably the biggest person that I look to as someone that just overcame adversity time after time and did a lot. And, obviously very much helped me as she's my mom, right? But outside of people that I know personally, like, Kobe's the only hero that I have that's a real person. Like, other people that I pick are fiction characters. Because the thing that unites all of them is this never compromise mentality that Kobe had. And he's just the only one that did it for as long as he... Like, that's who Iverson was. He didn't talk about it that way.
Yeah.
But that's what he showed on the court, was like, I'm never going to give up.
Yeah.
But once he got a little older and his athleticism wasn't there anymore, he might just be short enough that it doesn't matter unless he was going to become Steph Curry, right?
Yeah.
But he's even shorter than Steph Curry.
Yeah.
Like, Iverson kind of fell apart, and, like, Iverson refused to play off the bench, But he hadn't earned a starting spot because he didn't practice. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
Like, he eventually, he faded out of the league in a very ungracious way.
Right. But, and when he played hard, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like there's these different levels to the commitment. It's like, for the most part, everyone in the NBA is probably playing hard most of the time.
Sure, right.
And then you have these select few that probably play harder than the majority, and then you get your superstars and everything. And
yeah.
But it seemed like Kobe was always able to transcend all of those.
Yeah. Well, I think it's because of, what you said. You said a statement earlier that I heard him say, maybe on the podcast I listened to him on a couple of weeks ago, which was All the Smoke with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson. He's on an episode of that.
Mm-hmm.
And he talked about, like, how people don't want to work on their weaknesses. Like they just go
Yeah.
shoot, and it's like, but is shooting the thing that hurts you the most, or is it like post defense,
Right.
or is it whatever it is? Is it dribbling left? Is it whatever it is? Like that's you are the only one that knows what your weakness is.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was talking about kind of the workout culture that exists now, where everyone wants to have a guy that works them out,
Yeah.
and they do all this like agility conditioning training stuff and all this stuff that certainly is beneficial, but that is kind of generic.
Right.
And it's like, that's not what you like. If you know, from his perspective, it's like that's not what you need to work on.
Right.
You need to work on whenever you get in a game and you feel like, I hope they don't make me do this, or if this happens, I'm in trouble. That is, you know.
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know. When you get to that level, it seems like that obviously you're going to be in a really good physical shape. Like you probably can move around, you have agility and things like that. So the the amount of gains that you're working towards is probably a lot less as opposed to developing a new skill where now I can shoot threes or now I can do post moves like Hakeem Olajuwon. Like you're adding another skill set to the game that you already have,
Mm-hmm.
which is good enough to be in the NBA, but then you add more to that game, which I don't know, it seems like a lot of people maybe have trouble making that transition
Yeah.
of developing their game or changing their style of play if they need to come off the bench or become a shooter or whatever needs to happen.
Right. Yeah, I listened to Bill Simmons' podcast that he made, the same day that Kobe passed, and he talked in it about how typically for NBA players they're good for about 10 years,
Mm-hmm.
and then the grind of playing that much just kicks in,
Yeah.
and that Kobe played for about the 10 years and then found a way to extend his prime by like another 5 or 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And it's because of what you're talking about, where he's willing to adapt his game and change his game. And
Yeah.
I mean, he always could dunk, right?
Right.
I mean, even in 2012, which was probably his last fully healthy season,
Mm-hmm.
he was still dunking and, all that kind of catching oops or whatever. I mean, it's not like he couldn't move at that point.
Yeah.
But I think he had turned into way more of a shooter than a slasher
Yeah.
by that point.
Well, and also developing your understanding of the game where you may be getting so many baskets off your athleticism, fast breaks, dunks, alley oops, things like that. But once you have a better understanding of the game and positioning, now you're going to certain spots to try and get certain shots
Mm-hmm.
and maybe being more surgical about it. And so, yeah, if you train in post moves and know it's like, well, I got the matchup I want, I can go to the block, I can get this post move off, and now you got almost a guaranteed bucket or at least a good shot.
Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, it seems like being able to have those options just makes you that much more harder to defend.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think that we will probably never see, another player like Kobe Bryant. I mean, I don't know. I mean, like Kawhi Leonard in the last couple of years has generated comparisons to Michael Jordan, and Kobe
Yeah.
is obviously like the closest thing to Michael Jordan we've ever had.
Right.
But and now, I mean, Kawhi is incredibly talented, so it's not that his skill is not appropriate or something, but like
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know that he's that guy that Kobe is. I mean, Kobe wouldn't take games off, right? Kobe
Yeah.
wouldn't, and Kobe stayed at one team. Now he did request a trade in like '07, I think,
Yeah.
which they didn't make, obviously. But I don't know. I just don't know that we'll see it. Maybe we will.
He's like the one of the last old school players.
Yes.
Because when he came into the league, there was still that physicality,
Hand checking.
yeah, there was still that we play every game
Hard fouls.
mentality.
Yep.
Yeah, and so that's how he had to learn the NBA game. and kept it, that philosophy throughout. But now with people coming in, it's just not as physical, and advances in medicine. It's we got to rest and all this stuff. So which arguably might be good, to lengthen careers and everything. But
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a certain grit to being able to think of it that way, where you're just going to play every game as hard as you can, and no matter what.
Well, I heard him talk about it, and I thought it was really, I thought it was a really appropriate sentiment. And this was when he was still playing, but he said, if I can get out there, if I can do it. And now sometimes he was injured in ways that he couldn't. Like if you've got a knee injury or something, you might just not be able to get around the court.
Yeah.
But if he could do it, if he could get out there and play, even if he was sick or tired or whatever, he was like, the tickets are pretty expensive. And there's probably someone in the stands where it's the only time they're ever going to see a Laker game.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's not like everyone's a season ticket holder, right?
Yeah.
So there's probably some kid who's in the stands who's never going to be there again, and they cannot wait to see Kobe Bryant play.
Mm-hmm.
And now he's going to sit out because he's a little tired,
Yeah.
What's that? How is that respectful to the fan,
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's something that's been lost in the modern NBA, is that everything has turned into servicing almost like the media narrative about players, as opposed to just the people who actually pay for the media and the players, which are the fans.
Yeah, the supporters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I heard, like they were talking about the All-Star game the other day on something I was listening to, and they were talking about how they think that it should actually just go back to 100% fan vote.
Mm-hmm.
Which they went away from because people like Allen Iverson were getting voted to be all-star starters when they were in the league,
Yeah.
but they weren't even playing.
Right.
Yeah. Or Tracy McGrady, when he was well past his prime, still getting voted.
Right.
And they were like, but honestly, like, the All-Star Game's just an exhibition that no one really cares about anyway, as far as the players and stuff.
Yeah, so if they want to see...
So just make it whatever the fans want, right? If they want to see T-Mac come out and shoot around when he's not at the best, like, okay, why not? Because what else is for the fans anymore? And I think that there's some truth to that. And I was really surprised that Kobe, coming from an NBA player background, coming from a guy who went straight to the NBA as soon as he graduated high school. So he's been enormously wealthy and secluded from normal life from his whole life.
Yeah.
That he still had the capacity to understand the significance to someone who makes 30 grand a year, someone who, you know what I mean? Someone who isn't a millionaire,
Yeah.
Someone who makes an average salary.
It seems like it would be really easy if you're in that position as a professional athlete to just not even consider, someone who is just a fan in the stands, and what that actually means to them.
Right.
It's like, well, I need to take care of my body, because if I don't, then I'm not going to be able to continue to make my millions or whatever. But, yeah, like when he played most of the season with his broken finger.
Yeah.
It was constantly like having to retake
Pretty sure that's the year that they beat Boston.
Right.
Yeah.
The whole year. A broken finger. Like different tape jobs to try and work on his different shooting to see what felt better than something else.
Yep.
And or even when he tore that Achilles and still went to the free throw line and made those free throws.
I know.
That was
just one of the most ultimate Kobe moments ever.
I know, that was
Just
something.
like, what, dude?
He's like, no, I'm gonna shoot these.
I mean, there are so many Kobe stories that are good. It's hard to say that there's a favorite or something, but I do have some that I wanted to just bring up again, just because they're fun to relive. One would be whenever they were playing the Suns in the playoffs, and this was the one that was always my most famous Kobe story. For me, and it's not his most famous story at all, but it was my favorite Kobe story. And that was, and it's, again, now it's in the mix with others, but for a long time this was it. And there was a guy named Raja Bell who used to guard Kobe in the playoffs. And Raja Bell, if you're not an NBA fan, you've never heard of. And if you're an NBA fan, you still might not have, especially if you didn't watch it 12 years ago, right? Because that guy hasn't been relevant for a long time. And even when he was, in quotes, relevant, he wasn't a star. He was just a role player on a team. And Raja Bell talked all this crazy mess about Kobe and how he was going to shut him down, and Kobe was overrated, and he wasn't going to score, and blah, blah, blah. And so then they go into the locker room with Kobe, I think it was after practice or something, and ask him, hey, Raja Bell said blah, blah, blah about you. What do you have to say to that? And he said, who? And they were like, Raja Bell, and he's like, never heard of him. Which he definitely knew who he was. They play against each other, multiple times a season, multiple years in a row in the playoffs. So he definitely knows who he is. But just that level of dismissiveness was just like, ooh, that is so good. Like, that's so much better than anything else you could have said.
Yeah.
It's kind of like when LeBron James went to the Heat, and everyone villainized LeBron like he had killed someone for switching teams in free agency. And a reporter asked him, how do you live with yourself knowing that you betrayed your old team or the city of Cleveland or whatever? And he said, look, man, at the end of the day, I wake up every day and I'm LeBron James. And you wake up and you're whoever you are. So that's how I deal with it. And it's like, that's actually the cold, hard reality.
Yeah.
Like, say what you want, try and be involved in whatever narrative you want. At the end of the day, fuck you, man. Like, it's LeBron.
And it's like, well, I mean, am I going to defend myself against this comment or offer some sort of argument as to why he's not right? And it's like, no, I don't know who that is.
Right. It's like, you know what? Everyone who has even a cursory knowledge of basketball knows who Kobe Bryant is. Mm-hmm. And there's a lot of people that have never heard of Raja Bell, and they watch games every night, like.
What's awesome is that last night I was watching, I don't know, some sports channel, and they were obviously talking about, Kobe, but they had someone on the phone that was gonna offer some comments, and it was Raja Bell.
Really?
Yeah.
I've seen Raja Bell talk about Kobe in recent years, and he's very respectful and reverent.
Oh, of course.
And, he was just a competitor. He's just competing. He was trying to get in his...
It wasn't like anything...
It wasn't personal like
disrespectful
that.
or anything like that. It was just like, hey, we're competitors.
Right.
If you're going to say something, then...
Raja Bell's a man, too. You know what I mean? He is. Like, he can't be afraid of him or whatever, so of course he's going to say those things and think those things.
Yeah.
But that was like... I mean, since then, I have just told people... whenever they're upset about someone else talking trash about him or whatever, it's like, just Kobe him, dude. Yeah. It's like, who are you? Like, I don't even know you. Mm-hmm. Sorry. Like,
because, I mean, in the game, when you're playing, I mean, you're not thinking about who this other person is.
No.
I mean, it's just like...
they're a body in front of you.
Yeah, they're just keeping you from doing what you're trying to do, and, well, in his mind, he's not going to do that, so...
Right. Another one was around that same time, and this was probably, I want to say it was probably like 06, 07 was when this was all happening. It was around that same time, a reporter walks in and says, again, like after practice or something, and asks Kobe, if you could have a compliment from another NBA player, like, who could compliment you and it would mean the most to you? Mm-hmm. Kind of thing, right? Like, who among your peers would you be the most proud of their admiration?
Yeah.
And Kobe, very unenthusiastically, very deadpan, just kind of looks up at her and just goes, I mean, honestly, I don't really care about any of them. Like, and it wasn't like he didn't deliver it with any sense of comedic timing. Like, he wasn't trying to zing.
Yeah.
Like, he really thought about it and then was just kind of surprised that she thought that that would be
Yeah.
a thing that he would care about. It's like, I love you so much for that. Thank
Yeah.
you.
He's like, I'm not who I am because I've sought admiration.
Right,
from...
because I hope Kevin Garnett compliments me.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever. And then probably, and this might, I don't know. Again, like I said, I don't know if I can have a favorite, but this one, I only learned about in more recent years. But there's a guy named Jason Williams who was drafted by the Bulls in like 2003 maybe, and then got in a motorcycle accident, ended his career, and now he's an analyst on ESPN. So if anyone watches ESPN, you probably know Jay Williams, who he is or whatever. But he has a story which I've shared before, but where he was talking, or he was at it was when he was in the NBA and they're playing the Lakers that night. So he shows up to the gym. I don't know how long. We'll say 2 hours. I don't know what it is. An hour, whatever it is. I think it was like actually 3 hours before the game, because his plan was to get a workout in and then recover a bit before the actual game started. So he goes into work out, and Kobe's already working out. And so then Jay Williams is like, oh, all right, cool, whatever. So then he does his workout, finishes, and when he gets there, Kobe's already in a full sweat. Like, Kobe's already been going at it for a while. So then Jason Williams finishes his workout and then sits down on the sidelines, kind of untying his shoes, whatever, getting ready to go to the locker room, and looks down, and Kobe Bryant's still going. And he continues to work out for like another 30 minutes. And so they go their separate ways. They play the game. And then after the game, Jason Williams goes to Kobe and he's like, hey man, like, why did you work out for that long before the game? Like, how long did you go? Why did you do that? And Kobe said, I saw you down there and I wanted you to know that no matter how hard you work, I will always work harder than you. And it's like, the coldness of that sentiment and that statement is just like, it's just so good.
Yeah.
Like, it's just so good because it's not I'm more talented than you, or just some arbitrary, like, I'm better than you, or you'll never be as good as me. None of that.
Yeah.
None of that. It's all what we can actually control, which is work, and I'll outdo you on that.
Yeah.
Now, it turns out that Kobe is already more physically gifted than Jason Williams because he's 6'6" or 7.
He's like, I'm already better than you, but if you wanted to be better than me,
you can't.
There's no way.
Right. You'll never catch me. And it's brilliant.
Yeah.
But Kobe's credited, with kind of passing that torch to the next generation, because in 2008, he went to the Olympics with LeBron and D-Wade and Melo. And even though, '08 Kobe was the league MVP, so he was in his prime. But those guys were no slouches at that point.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's widespread sentiment that because LeBron and D-Wade and Melo and those guys all said it, but that, like, they didn't really understand what a real work ethic looked like until they spent that time with Kobe. Like, not that they didn't work out or something before then, but they just didn't understand, like, because LeBron is, one of the most elite players ever to play the game. Top 5 for sure, whatever you want to rank him, I don't care. But, and I think that he didn't understand, like, because Kobe's that same level of talent, and it's like, yeah, but that alone isn't enough.
Right.
You got to do both to beat this.
Yeah.
And, yeah, I don't know. I just love it. I might have just stolen your favorite 3, but did you have any? Is there any story that pops to your mind at all, other than those?
I thought it was funny that I heard, like, a while back when Kendrick Perkins was talking about guarding Kobe. And Kendrick Perkins is a big man. He's not supposed to guard Kobe.
Right.
But it was kind of later in his career, and Perkins likes to, I assume, joke around a lot, or,
Right.
But he actually switched out on Kobe.
Right.
And told Kobe, he's like, all right, I'm here, let me see it. Almost challenging him. And Kobe just looked at him and said, "I'm gonna snatch your other ACL," because Perkins had torn his ACL in the past, and
Mm.
he's like, "I'm gonna do this move. I'm gonna tear your other ACL if you're trying to keep up with me."
Mm.
But but yeah, it was in good humor.
Right.
But I don't know. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and honestly, like the the best farewell game, at least for a basketball player, ever. Because his team was a losing. They were 17-65 that year. They were horrible. He wasn't playing well anymore. He had been shooting terribly, and actually still shot terribly in his last game. I think he took 50 something shots,
Yeah,
but he got 60. Man,
he did.
he got 60.
And it was like a close game.
It was to win.
Yeah, and you know, he gave him the Kobe magic
Yeah,
for the last game.
yeah.
And yeah, it was beautiful. I mean,
And it was the only time I ever saw him look tired.
mm-hmm.
Like you could tell that this was it because it was like he was like panting.
Yeah.
Now he wasn't quitting.
No.
I mean there was no recoiling from that on his part or anything. He was definitely definitely in it, and in his mind he was probably 24 still. You know,
Yeah.
he was still Mamba or whatever.
Yeah.
But he looked exhausted. But he still did it, man. He still hit those buckets when it mattered.
Yeah, and you know, a lot of help from his teammates too. I'm sure they were like, "It's your last game. Like, here, just keep passing him."
Oh well, and especially on that team.
Yeah.
Because what is Nick Young going to shoot tonight?
I
Like you
hope
better
not.
not.
I hope not.
I mean, we don't want you shooting the rest of the time. You better not tonight. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, Nick Young told a story about Kobe when they were in practice where Nick Young had broke his finger and Kobe didn't believe him because he thought Nick Young was just trying to sit out of practice.
Yeah.
So not only did he not believe him and insist that he practiced, but then
Yeah.
but then would throw passes as hard as he could the entire time. And when he was guarding Nick Young, would hit his finger as hard as he could over and
Oh
over.
my goodness.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was just
Yeah.
that's just who he was.
This is what we're doing.
Coming for you.
Yeah. Well, he was like, I've already played with a broken finger, so.
Well, I won a championship with it.
Yeah.
My second in a row, actually. Where are you at, Nick Young? Swaggy P?
Yeah. Not in the league.
Right. Right. But yeah, man, I don't know. I mean, Kobe, I think, is someone who, I mean, has been an inspiration to me since I found out about him. When I say found out about him, since I really became invested in him. I think he's someone that'll always be significant to me.
Mm-hmm.
Things I would check out if you haven't. Probably my favorite basketball thing I've ever seen is called Kobe Doing Work.
Oh, that's so good.
So what it is he plays a game against the San Antonio Spurs, and Spike Lee filmed the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then the following season, when Kobe's playing the Knicks, after the Knicks game, he goes to Spike Lee's studio or whatever, and then sits with Spike Lee and explains the game that he had played against San Antonio that Spike Lee filmed from his own perspective.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, I mean, I've just never seen anything like that.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that with that insider perspective.
Yeah, it's so good.
It's so good. Also Muse, which was the documentary he made right around the time he retired.
That was good too.
Excellent. Yeah, really, really good. And man, I know he was going to make some more cool stuff.
I know.
You know he was going to make some more cool stuff. Like,
yeah.
But yeah. And it's crazy because, like, LeBron James just passed him on Saturday night for points all time in the NBA.
Right.
And then they interviewed LeBron afterwards in the locker room. And it's almost like a eulogy that he delivers. Like, it's not. I mean, he's not talking about him being gone.
Yeah.
But he's talking very earnestly about how much Kobe meant to him as a kid growing up, and like how he looked up to him and like gave him some shoes when LeBron was still in high school. He went to an All-Star game and Kobe gave LeBron a pair of his shoes.
Oh,
and
wow.
So like they knew each other from like the very beginning of LeBron's career and emergence.
Yeah.
And then eventually grow into competitors and then teammates again in the Olympics, and now LeBron obviously plays for the Lakers, and now he's and so it was this very, like, sweet,
Yeah.
kind of soliloquy about LeBron James, or excuse me, about Kobe Bryant from LeBron, and then the next morning, like, that's it, man.
Yeah, that's so crazy. So crazy.
It's so crazy. But yeah, I mean, something I said at the very beginning that I don't know if I probably already elaborated on, but I'll just to hit it one more time is like, I still find myself a bit confused on how to react because I feel sad about it, but I also recognize that like I don't know him.
Yeah.
And while I have an emotional connection to him, it wasn't personal. Because I don't actually know him. I know the personality that he sold to the world, right?
Right.
And not in a negative way. I don't mean that he did something wrong, but just he's a celebrity, so he's going to have to give you something, But I don't know. I didn't hang out with him outside of that.
Yeah.
And I think in the end years and like that podcast he was on with Matt Barnes and Steven Jackson, you start to get a window into who is the real Kobe Bryant away from all of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I feel like I almost feel like I have to manage my emotions with it because I can't let it swing too far because then it's almost like I'm like inserting myself into a tragedy that isn't really mine. Does that make sense?
It does. It does. But at the same time, we've drawn a lot of inspiration from him. And so, I don't know. In a sense, it feels closer. Just because we've paid attention, to him.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a famous, I don't know if you've ever seen this, there's a famous video on the internet at some college where the professor tells the class that if some kid towards the back row can make a paper wad in the trash can, that they don't have to take their test or their final or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And he yells Kobe and hits it.
Yeah.
And the whole class, and it's like a big auditorium class. It's not like 20 kids. It's like 50 or more,
Yeah.
And they all erupt and go crazy. And, and it's just like, I don't know. It's just those kind of little moments with Kobe that are just, that you just love.
Yeah.
Like, he isn't there, of course, and involved, but like, everyone knows what it means when you shoot your shot and yell Kobe. You know what I mean? Everyone knows what that means.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Kobe was just one who just seemed to make it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
But, well, thank you very much, man, for joining and talking about this. I really felt compelled to put something out. And, I mean, this is one of the reasons that I like having this podcast is because I like that you and I get to make this and we get to participate in the conversation about that.
Yeah.
Not just between each other. Because we both love Kobe a lot. Like, Kobe really, really meant something to both of us for a long time now. And, I mean, like I mentioned Dame Lillard earlier, and it's like, I want to like Dame. And, I mean, I don't have anything against Dame.
Yeah.
But, like, I mean, we've talked about it. It's like, well, could he be the next, like, Kobe?
It's
you
like,
know?
yeah,
I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, to Dame's credit, he does say and do all the right things.
He's there.
And that basket he hit last year against the Thunder was like, ooh, that was very Kobe-esque.
Yeah.
That was very Kobe-esque.
Yeah.
With the wave and the stone face.
Yeah.
I think Derrick Rose might have been another contender for that space if he wouldn't have been riddled with injury.
He was close. Yeah.
Because it's basically you have to be dominant, but act like... And it's clear that you care about it, because otherwise you wouldn't be that good. Mm-hmm. But the whole time act like it doesn't... Like, it's beneath you a little bit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
This, like, feigned arrogance, almost.
Right.
That's... Yeah.
Yeah. And it's like, when Dame hit that shot and did the wave, it's like, I just don't think Kobe would have waved, though. You know? At, like, the other team.
I don't know. I think he would have, because it's kind of like when Phoenix said that Kobe had no heart. Because they were doing the same thing I used to do. They were trying to say that he's all style and no substance. He doesn't really have any heart. He just shoots a lot.
Oh, okay.
You know? And then he beats them in the playoffs and then is ripping his jersey over his chest to expose his heart. You know? Like, because the reason Dame did it is because Westbrook was talking to him the whole time.
Oh, that's right. I forgot
And Paul
that part.
George.
Okay, yeah.
And
Yeah,
like
someone was talking about it.
And like the Thunder had won a game where they were clearly up, and Paul George, I think ooped it, like caught an alley oop and dunked it like at the buzzer when they were already up like 10.
Yeah.
And it's like, why you got to do that? And he's like, still playing.
Yeah.
And he's like, oh, okay, you're cute now, huh?
Yeah.
I got you. So I feel like it was appropriate.
Okay.
I feel like it was appropriate, and I thought the wave was good because he didn't say anything else.
That's true.
He just bye.
See ya.
Yeah, holla.
Yeah.
Anyway, again, thanks for stopping by and talking about Kobe with me, man. Like I said, I think he'll be with us always, and I'll send us out with a Kobe. That is going to do it for today's show, folks. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you, Chris Crabtree, for stopping by and talking about Kobe Bryant with me. Thank you, Misha Zarins, for providing the music for today's show, as well as all the shows, just like you always have. And thanks to Kobe Bryant for being someone who is a lot of fun to be a fan of, and someone who definitely left a mark on the world and is an inspiration for a lot of people, just all around the world. I will also say, if you enjoy listening to me and would like to also hear about video games, you can check me out on the other podcast, which is Pick Up Your Sticks. It's co-hosted by me and Brett Lindley, and it's all about video games. We talk about why gaming matters. So you can find Pick Up Your Sticks anywhere where podcasts are available. And yeah, appreciate the listen. Have a good week.